Up Network. Welcome to the flagship show of the Fired Up Network, Fired Up Live, here with Captain Canada. You know, I'm the president of Canada, you're Captain Canada, Drew Ebanks, and of course, world famous attorney Norm Jessen. All right, Norm, I know you're season ticket holder for the Tampa Raptors. All right, Tampa Raptors, not Toronto Raptors, because the way it looks like they're never coming to Toronto. Okay, that's the way it looks like. They're never going to come back to Toronto. So, first of all, how disappointed in the season are you?
Well, it's not a question of disappointed. I mean, it's not a normal season. It's nice to watch games, right? But it's not just the Raptors. The Raptors have been almost unwatchable from the time they all got COVID, right? I mean, they're a little bit better now, right? So and they played a nice game yesterday. But this season, it just seems to me, I don't know what you think, Drew, but it seems to me that it's just not a real season. It just, no matter who wins, it doesn't have the same meaning, right? Like you got teams like Washington that were supposed to, compete for a pretty a higher playoff spot. They got hit early by COVID. They just were wiped out, right? And like the Raptors are struggling to make this stupid buy-in tournament, So it's just a weird season, and the schedule is crazy with 4 games and 5 nights. It just doesn't seem like it doesn't, and it doesn't look like the teams are always into it. And how can they be? There's no fans, or there's a few fans, not many. It's just not. It's not normal, right? It's nice to watch it. It's a diversion when you got to stay home, but it's just not normal.
Drew?
Yeah, it's been a tough season. Obviously, we talked about this before. It's like they're having, basically all road games. They're playing road games for the whole season. Very tough adjustment for the Raptors. You can see it. There's no real home cooking, even though all teams, guys, have a restriction on the amount of fans that they can have. Some arenas look like they have more than others, though, which is a kind of an unfair advantage. But the Raptors have been, they've been in and out of sync. And really, I attribute it to the way they're playing, the gameplay, the types of shots they're taking. In my opinion, and I've said this many times, they bail out by taking too many threes. There has to be players that are willing to sacrifice their bodies, get to the 10, cause fouls on the opposing team, and put the teams at a disadvantage. Too many times you see the Raptors fall behind and have to come back and fight back. And when you're taking 30, 40 plus threes, to me, that just tells me you're not willing to sacrifice your body. You're not willing to get to the rack. You're not willing to get hit. You're not willing to get, to hit the court when you get fouled. I think everybody on that team needs to take a look at Dwayne Wade and look at the way he played. Even Allen Iverson, and the way he played, pound for pound, probably the greatest player pound for pound in NBA history. You have to be willing to get to the rack, and their outside-in mentality, maybe it's because they have no big men. They have no Ibaka to dump it into. Gasol's gone, and they have no size. But I hope, if they acquire somebody, guys, in the free agency, preferably a big man, I hope to see the style of play change, because sometimes I'll tell you, it's unwatchable just seeing guys jacking up threes from the outside.
But Drew, don't you think, okay, who had COVID? We know Pascal had COVID, right?
Yeah, Freddie Van Vliet.
Freddie had COVID.
I think one or two other players and a couple.
I think Malachi had COVID.
No, I don't remember him having it. No, but I know there's at least another couple players, plus
another couple.
The coaches, I think, were either, I don't know if they had it, Joe, or they were on lockdown because.
But I'm talking about players. If you got Freddie and
Pascal,
I mean, how many times have they faded in the fourth quarter? When you thought they had a chance to win and they just couldn't finish it off. And don't you think part of it, like jacking up threes or whatever, there's just a fatigue factor. So there's kind of like a chain reaction. You've got your key guys, right, with COVID. And we all know people who've had COVID, and it takes them weeks and sometimes longer to get back to normal, right?
Sometimes they don't. They're the long
Sometimes, and sometimes they don't.
right.
Although Pascal's looking a lot better now, but the chain reaction is then you got these other guys, right, who are basically I won't say scrubs, but they're sort of bench guys who weren't playing that well, and they're being asked to carry a huge load, and they're fatigued, and then you've got a schedule that compacts them all together,
Yes.
and the teams
storm.
that I don't know if Brooklyn got hit by COVID. I don't know.
They did. KD, I believe, had to sit out for COVID protocols. I believe he had it as well.
The Raptors.
Yes, he did have it.
But they have a lot of guys, and I don't know on Philadelphia who had it, right? If anybody, but the teams that that had it, of course, they're going to struggle. I mean, Washington had it early, and they've never recovered from it really. Their season, I think a lot more was expected out of them with Westbrook and Bradley Beal. So I just think there's a fatigue factor. One of the reasons you jack up that many threes is a fatigue factor. And you look at how they were playing. You look at how the Raptors were playing before everybody got COVID. They had beaten in the span of a week or two. They'd beaten Milwaukee twice. They beat Brooklyn. They beat Philadelphia. They were on a tear, and then all of a sudden they've just not been able to do it. I mean, there was some games where they played well and made a push, even I'll add this, even early on, right, when they were losing games early, but they were in the games. How many games did they lose on last second shots, right?
1-8. They went 1-8. Yeah,
and that part of it, I agree with you. I think the absence of a really good big man meant that they had to expend so much energy rebounding and everything. And I think they just don't have that energy at the end of the game. The Raptors were known 2 years ago, right, for coming from behind and winning games in the fourth quarter. And now they're losing games in the fourth quarter. So I think fatigue has to do a lot of it. And I think that fatigue arises from the COVID and also from the absence of the really good big men that they had been used to having.
So, Captain Canada, Drew, we have a question from you from a guy named Marty Roberts, and says, ask Drew, does NBA have to do something about players being bought out after the trade deadline, allowing them to go to the top teams in the league for nothing? It's not a good look. Your comments on that question?
Great question. Who did you say it was from?
Marty Roberts.
Okay, thanks, Marty. Appreciate you checking us out. I think you make a great point. A lot of people right now are discouraged. They're discouraged in smaller markets because you see the same players or the big time players getting bought out and moving to 2 or 3 or 4 teams. And none of the teams really have a shot at getting these players. And you saw what the Nets did, amassing Blake Griffin and Lamarcus Aldridge. I'm sure we'll talk about him in a bit. Yeah. And then you look at the Lakers getting Andre Drummond. And then you look at, say, a Clippers team, being able to get, top quality players as well. And it seems like only 4 or 5 teams have access. So the NBA is going to have to look at that. I think they're going to have to look at the competitive disadvantage. I don't know how the smaller markets can compete if this is going to be the case where these top players are going to go to 4 to 5 teams only, and the other teams have no shot at it. So it's a great question. I think they're probably already contemplating what to do, because for the fans, it's quite discouraging if you're from a team that's not one of those preferred teams.
So, Norm, what do you have to say about that?
Well, it's nothing new. It's probably worse now, but you go back to when Boston got the super team with Kevin Durant and not Kevin Durant, Kevin Garnett, right, and Paul Pierce, and the 3-point guy,
Ray Allen.
Ray Allen.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had Rondo, and then you had LeBron James go to Miami with Chris Bosh. I mean, it's always been like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now Brooklyn's doing it on steroids, but it's always okay. First it was 2, Then it was 3. Now it's 4 or 5. Because you gotta always one up. It's like that movie where he says, "Well, you bring a knife to a fight, the other guy's got to bring a gun. You bring a gun, the other guy's got to bring a cannon." That's it's always been like that. So, and the NBA, I think the fans of the small market teams don't like it, but the overall NBA fans love to see these super teams compete against each other, right? There's always 2 or 3, right? So the NBA likes that because they get to showcase, they'll have the game of the week on ABC or whatever, and they'll showcase the Nets against the Lakers or the Clippers or whatever, whoever the super teams are. And until too many of the fans of the small teams just tune out, until it hurts the NBA, they're just gonna let it go.
All right, so Drew, you mentioned Lamarcus Aldridge. Okay, let's talk. He had forced to retire because of heart ailment. Also, and I'm not going to mix hockey into it, but I have to say Henrik Lundqvist just underwent open heart surgery. Of course, he was the Rangers goalie. Washington signed him this year. He just underwent open heart surgery. But let's get back to Lamarcus Aldridge. What can you say about, his career is probably over. He retired, and some guys retire and then they think about it, and then next year they're coming back. But I don't think he's coming back.
No, this is a serious situation for Lamarcus Aldridge. 15 years in the league. I remember going back to the draft, thinking the Raptors had a chance to draft him and pair him with Chris Bosh, and as we know, they didn't do that. And I think that was a mistake on their part, because no matter what you say, the talent was there. Yeah, they might have been playing the same position, but you know what? It was almost like a prelude to the small ball, where you have 2 guys that were very versatile, that could have played together. But that's neither here nor there. Aldridge was diagnosed in about 14 years ago with Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome, which means there's an extra electrical pathway between the heart's upper and lower chambers that causes the rapid heartbeat. So he's been dealing with this for quite a long time, guys. And, after the game, I believe it was on Saturday against the Lakers, the next morning, he had experienced the rapid heartbeat again, and told the team they got him to the hospital, thank goodness, stabilized that condition. You go back to, the Reggie Lewises, you go back to the Hank Gathers, and even what happened to what's the young player that's on that was on the Nets and got traded away? Man, I can't even remember his name, but just recently, the doctors found something. Karis LeVert, exactly, and the doctors found something and got out ahead of it. So, testament to the NBA to see that and say, hey, this is a serious thing. I'm hoping he can get something, maybe a surgical procedure that's going to help him to live his life, because even though he's not going to be playing basketball, you would think he'd still want to remain healthy, exercise. Physical fitness is very important as you get older. So hopefully he can get a hold of that. But it's such a sad situation to see a player who hadn't won an NBA title, guys, gets to that team. Again, we just spoke about the fact that, the Nets are able to stockpile all these assets, gets to a team finally that could possibly win a championship. And this news comes, must be so devastating for him. But he also acknowledged, he's had a great career, all NBA, 5-time, 7-time All-Star. He's done it all. Only one of, I think, 25 players to have like 19,000 points and 8,000 rebounds. So he's had a phenomenal career. And I know it's hurting him.
He was on the last San Antonio championship team, wasn't he, or was he?
I don't believe so.
No, as far as I know, he does not.
Did he come after that? Was he the one with Tony Parker and?
I think he was 7 years, 6 or 7 years in San Antonio.
When they beat San Antonio, who did they beat? Miami, I think.
Yeah, they beat Miami. He came after that.
He came after that, eh?
Yeah, and just missed it.
We have another question, and this is actually a good question. This comes from Lucas Saramonte. And Lucas wants to know, with all this talk about COVID and vaccine, can anybody tell me, and I'm talking to my friends, it says, about Chris Bosh who had blood clots and he had to retire. So that would Chris Bosh get the vaccine? So for people who, there's been talking about vaccines and blood clots and all that. For people, that's a good question. For people like Chris Bosh who has blood clots already.
Well, I can tell you guys from firsthand experience that I had the same thing in 2010 that Chris Bosh had. I had a pulmonary embolism, and I had blood clots in my lungs. They couldn't figure it out. I was out of breath. Even just working out at the gym, I was playing hoops, in men's leagues, and I would be bent over after a couple trips up and down. They finally gave me all the tests, thought it was my heart. It was not my heart. It was my lungs, and there were clots all in my lungs. So it's a serious situation. And that's a great question again, because yes, taking the vaccine, you never know, right? They've found like AstraZeneca one, some blood clots, but not a lot of people getting it. But somebody like Chris, somebody like myself, who have had that condition and know what it is to deal with, we are leery as well. I take a blood thinner every day, and that just on my own, I don't have to, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. So it is a serious condition. And yeah, Chris has to think about it. Serena Williams had pulmonary embolism. She has to think about it as well.
Can I just on that? I've got the AstraZeneca shot, so I've been reading everything I can about it. Right.
Okay.
I'm not a doctor, and I'm not telling people. What I say now isn't necessarily, the Bible or the science, but I do believe that I have read that because you've had a clot doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get that it's a marker for getting the clot from the vaccine, because the clots from the vaccine are a different kind of clot, and they're clots that are created by antibodies. The vaccine creates a kind of antibody and it's very rare that it does that, and it's not got to do with the other kind of clotting, and they're trying to figure out exactly what the markers are. But what I would say is that, to anybody, if you have clotting and you're concerned about whether to take a vaccine or which vaccine to take, you just got to talk to your doctor and get advice from your doctor, right?
It's kind of interesting as you say that. To me, it's when you think of the doctor or your doctor in this time period, it would be great if our doctors actually communicated with us and talked to us about this situation. And it's just, to me, something of this seriousness. I think a doctor should be speaking to all of their patients, especially ones that have conditions that could be affected by coronavirus, and kind of, guiding them through the process. But it's interesting that in a country that we have socialized medicine, that really we're on our own here. You said it, you looked it up on your own, Norm. And for me, like I said, with somebody who has a history of pulmonary embolism, there was no history of that in my family. Nobody ever had blood clots or anything like that. So it's just interesting that in Canada, we really are on our own. I would think that there would be more communication with doctors and their patients. Maybe some do have that, but again, with coronavirus, we don't even go and see our doctors anymore. Joe, we all know, how it is. We don't even go in. If you have to have an appointment, good luck. You might as well go to emergency or a walk-in clinic these days.
But you know what? If people shouldn't be afraid to call their doctors and arrange even telephone appointments if they have any concerns, right?
Great.
The doctors will get back to you. The other point is, we're off topic here, but there's a great, there's been a lot of articles in the press about how difficult it is to figure out how to get a vaccine, right, in Ontario. So there's a great article on the Globe today, if somebody goes to globeandmail.com, about volunteer groups that have sprung up to help people figure out how and where to get the vaccine, right? So if anybody's interested, I think I commend them
So-
to go to the Globe and Mail and have a look at that, right?
So one question, and then we'll get back to the sports because this is topical and everything like that. So Norm, like we always say, you're a season ticket holder for everything here. Okay, now have they, Leafs, Raptors, Blue Jays, have they notified you as a season ticket holder? Okay, we plan to come back in August. We plan to come back for if they make the Stanley Cup or whatever. Like, or because they want your money, but they don't tell you when they're coming back.
They haven't said a word. All they've done, I paid for. I mean, look. We paid for the season last year for both hockey and Raptors, and we did not ask. So when the games that were canceled, we did not ask for the money back. What they did is they put it toward the payment for next year, right? And that's it. And once we did that, I haven't heard. Like, I don't think that they've said very much, right?
They haven't been in touch or anything.
Well, they're in touch. They're inviting you to put your image on the screen in Tampa, right? For a few shekels.
For money, right?
Of course.
But you're a season ticket holder. They should put it there anyway.
Oh yeah, but they're not. I don't want to use my leftover money from last year to put my image on the screen.
You got to show everybody in Tampa. You got a haircut. Come on.
Not unless they give me one of those nice prime rib sandwiches that I used to get. Those $20 prime rib sandwiches that they serve up in the business in the Air Canada in the Scotiabank Club section.
Yeah, Air Canada Club. So
maybe if they put my image beside Drake. By the way, where's Drake's been? Drake been? Is he down in Miami or is he down in his bunker somewhere?
Plane, since I'm the president of Canada, takes the private plane. I have been in constant talk with Drake. He actually told me a bunch of good stories. Drew, I don't know if you know this. This is breaking news. J-Lo and A-Rod have split for good.
I heard.
J-Ro has called me, and we're going to have a coffee, social distance coffee and all that. J-Lo from the block, Jolt and Joe from the block. Together we're in the same block. Come on. All right? So, like, Norm's laughing there. Come on. But look, me and J-Lo go way back, way back. All right. So
apparently.
Drew, what do you mean apparently? All right, Drew, quickly here. The WNBA is having their draft tonight. But let's talk about, before we get to the draft, there's some rumors going around that the WNBA will have an expansion for next year. Toronto is on that list. What do you hear?
Well, I mean, I know that there's going to be a WNBA team coming to Toronto. I don't know who's going to be behind it. I would assume it would have something to do with MLSE. I don't think there would be a WNBA team coming here, and MLSE doesn't have their footprints all over that. I think it's great. I think it's one of the best leagues as far as community outreach. They love to get kids and school kids and teenagers in there, especially now we're in like a women's empowerment time of things with everything going on. And it's great to see. Their ratings were phenomenal, over the last playoffs in the last year. I'm happy that they booted out that lady from the Atlanta Dream that was not supporting of the movement for equality, Black Lives Matter, whatever you want to call it. It's about freedom for everybody, and it's about equality. It's not about putting one set of people above the others. We're all the human race. So it's fantastic. If it is coming to Toronto, that'll be amazing for women's basketball. And I can see once everybody's able to get back into the arenas, I can see them having a nice fan base there. But, exactly like when the Raptors came to Toronto, guys, you saw from the 25 years now to now, you see, we have 17, 18, 19, 20 Canadians in the NBA. We might have 40 in the next 5 years or more, just depending. And you're going to see if we get the WNBA team here in Toronto, the same thing's going to happen. The growth of women's basketball, which is already incredible, over 100 young ladies playing in Division I basketball. It's going to just continue to rise.
All right, 2 questions for Norm. We mentioned season ticket holder. Would you be interested in going to WNBA game? And where would the WNBA have a team? Air Canada Center, or Coca-Cola Coliseum, Old Maple Leaf Gardens. Where would you think the WNBA put a team?
Well, it depends on how much the fan interest was. I mean, I would guess that they would probably start at something like Rico, but you potentially, you could see that thing taken off. I mean, not necessarily to like the Raptors, but you could see you're going to have a cheaper ticket, right? And I suspect, and I could see huge outpouring of fans, and if that being the case, you could move them into the big arena, right? And but I don't know. I mean, I don't know where they would put him. And what was the second? Would I go?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd go. I would go to see a few games, definitely, right? I mean, as it is, I've got too many tickets. I got too many.
Yeah, if you want to give Drew some tickets, come on, and then because you give Drew gives me money, and that's it. Come on, but let's talk about the WNBA draft for a second, Drew. I don't know if you have it up there, but Dallas via New York had the first pick overall, and go ahead and you want to touch on round one. I don't know if you have it. They picked power forward or center from Texas.
Yep. I'm not too familiar with her as much, but Charlie Collier, #1 overall. Good for her. She averaged 12 points per game, 8.7 rebounds per game. It's great to see. I mean, I think there was so much fanfare. She's 6'5" as well. Great height, and two-time All-American was Charlie Collier. So a great pickup for them. And people, it was interesting that teams were moving around to get multiple draft picks, and it just shows you, the interest in women's basketball is growing, and teams trying to move around. The Dallas Wings moved up, obviously got that.
Dallas got 3 out of the first 5 picks. I don't know if you see that. 3 out of the first 5 picks went to Dallas.
That's absolutely incredible, and it just shows you, yes, you're right. The 1, 2, they picked Awak Queer. She's out of Finland, second.
Yeah, I watched her all the time in Finland at 3 a.m. She's pretty good.
Yeah, she's probably very good. I'm not familiar with her that much.
Come on, you're the Captain Canada. I'm the Prince of Finland. Come on.
I could see that. The pick that everybody was kind of wondering where this player would go, Ari McDonald. We know what she did for Arizona. She went 3rd overall, 21.7 points per game for her, 5.9 rebounds for Arizona, the NCAA finalists. Incredible career for her. It's going to be interesting to see what she can do in the WNBA. She's a smaller player, so it's going to be cool to see if she can replicate what she did in the college level. Kisri Gondrezic out of West Virginia went 4th, and Chelsea Dungy out of Arkansas went 5th. A lot of great players here. We hope we'll see if any of the Canadians can get picked up. But right now they're in the second round, and they have gone through 5 picks right now. And there's a player that we're a little familiar with, Dana Evans out of Louisville. Louisville was one of the top teams coming up. Destiny Slocum, Arkansas. That's the second pick in the second round. And then Dede Richards out of Baylor. The guard there, 6.8 points per game, 4.2 rebounds. She went to the Liberty, it looks like, and the 5th pick in the second round. So there's another, 7 picks, and then another 12 in the 3rd round. There's only 36 players getting drafted, guys, in this league. It's one of the hardest leagues, the WNBA, to make, out of all the professional leagues out there.
So I'm going to get to Norm here, but Drew, you talked about Canadian representation in the NBA. Let's give a shout out to Murray there. He got a torn ACL. I don't know if you saw that. We'll start off with Norm. Norm, did you see that a couple days ago?
Yeah. I saw that he's out for the year, I guess, right? And
that's for a year, probably at least a year or more.
Yeah, does it take that? Now, did OG have a torn ACL?
He did back in Indiana, yes.
Yeah. I mean, he
I mean,
can recover.
could be.
He can recover, but yeah, it's a tough break. I mean, he'd be back before the end of next year, I would think, right?
Well, if you're looking at it, it's April,
Yep.
and they're saying it's next April. So if they play a regular season, April's the end of the year. Are you going to really force him to play the playoffs?
Yeah, he might be gone for the
Do
full
you do you,
season.
do you think are they going to start right in October like they always do?
They want to play in October, and they want to have full fans there, and that's the question. In the United States, we saw it with the Blue Jays playing Texas, 38,000. We saw it at WrestleMania, 50,000. Now here we can't even get in Tampa where the Raptors play. They get 3,000-4,000. Here we don't even have anything, and people were saying, "Whoa, by summer it's going to be or whatever." I think it's we're talking about the fall or winter, if anything.
Joe, it's not just here. Look at Michigan. Michigan, which has a smaller population than Ontario, they had 10,000 new cases today. We had 4,700, and we're freaking out. And we're freaking out because we're worried at the pace of the growth, and it could get really high. But they're not doing any. So what are they going to do in Detroit? Are they going to have full fans? It's hard to know because we don't know how long this wave is going to last. I mean, the second wave.
This is the third wave. Are there 7 waves? Are there 18 waves?
Well, that's right. Hopefully, if everybody is vaccinated by October, that maybe there won't be another wave. But
they're saying too, Norm, sorry to cut you, that people will have to take a third shot. So it's not only like if you have
those drug companies are going to make a fortune for a long time.
It's going to be a fortune.
But
yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I don't know if it's just. I mean, the NBA can say they want to do that, but are they going to do that in Michigan if they can't control it? I mean, maybe they will.
NFL also said they want to have a full NFL. See, NBA, okay, there's still an arena. 15,000-20,000. NFL, all the Los Angeles has 100,000 seat stadium. All the stadiums are at least 60,000-70,000. They want to have capacity crowds. The NFL went 2 weeks ago and stated that. And NFL starts in September.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, what I saw in Texas blew my mind. When I saw that many,
nobody wearing masks, everybody sitting beside each other.
So I want to know as well, what are the numbers since that time? Was that about a week ago, or was that about 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago.
So right now, if what they're saying is true, there should be a huge surge in that state and in that area due to that game.
They said they were going to release it Thursday or Friday. I want to see that.
I mean, it's the variant they're saying now. It's the variant, guys. So it's it's much easier to catch the variant, and it's more virulent than the first and second wave.
Look what happened to the Vancouver Canucks. Okay?
That's right.
21 members, and they were supposed to play tomorrow, and they're canceled tomorrow, and they canceled Saturday's game against Leafs. And I'm telling you, if the NHL's smart, Vancouver shouldn't play. You can't force these guys. I don't know if you saw the Zoom meetings with players from Vancouver. They cannot function even. And you're going to have them play 20 games in 32 days?
No, that's too much. That's where you get injuries. And just a segue back to Jamal Murray, there's a lot of talk that possibly that part of the equation, the fact that there's so many games kind of condensed in the schedule. Obviously he's had some deep playoff runs the last couple of years, and you look at it, he was coming off 4 games off due to a right knee injury. So it could be some overcompensation, could be some overwork. And then he makes the move. I was watching the game, and you could see his legs hyperextend. It kind of buckled a little bit on the inside, and he goes down. And so you look at it, even that was under a minute left in the game. They were losing by about 7-8 points. You just, you wished maybe they could have got him out. Also, guys, to me, if you're out 4 games, the previous games, why wasn't he on a minutes restriction in that game that returned? He went in and played over 35 minutes or something of that nature. Yep. How could he not have been on a minutes restriction? This is your superstar. This is your second best player. This is the guy who can get you shots. And now, I mean, I don't know about you guys. I don't think the Denver Nuggets are a serious contender for a title without Jamal Murray.
And here's the other thing, okay? The NHL is playing 56 out of 82, but the NBA 72 out of 82. It's like they did them 72 out of 82. They missed 10 days. That's it. They have a normal season.
That's why you look at. That's why so many people are resting. So many people, like, it's not.
And getting hurt.
It's not.
Yeah,
it's
but that's
not.
the point
It's like it's. You know what? It's not. It's not a real season. It's just not. I mean, look. Whoever wins, right? I mean, last year wasn't a real season in the bubble, but at least you could say, nobody was getting COVID. I think last year, I think the players are playing like they know that. Like they're not. It's not. Like, it's crazy when teams are winning by 50 points one night and then, they're losing by 50 points the next. You get the feeling that even the players aren't taking it quite as seriously as they did last year and it's just hard. I don't know. It's just.
Yeah, I think it's just the difficulty, Norm. I don't think it's that they're not taking it serious. I think it's very difficult to get up knowing really and truly what are you playing for. Yes, we know we have a commitment. We signed a contract. But if people are getting sick, and even look at what Jason Tatum said before every game now, he has to use an inhaler. And so he got COVID, and is he ever going to be the same? If they didn't play a season this year and waited until the vaccine was in and people got, herd immunity essentially, it might have spared a lot of these athletes. Now, maybe because they're super athletes, they're in great shape and whatever, they can withstand what they suffered through COVID. But I'll tell you, many of them are going to have long lasting effects of this disease.
Drew,
and this
Drew, you know what I think about?
Mm-hmm.
What will happen if an athlete in any of these leagues, dies from COVID? What will they do?
They will suspend everything. Like it's what happened with Rudy Gobert last year.
And if it's only through arrogance that they think that can't happen.
Well, I knock on wood. That's a great question.
That it won't happen.
Pardon? Yeah, we're all praying that. We're all hoping.
Of course we are.
I think this NHL situation is the worst, I think, out of all the leagues so far. This is a variant.
By the way, it was a variant. For people who don't know, one of the players' girlfriend or whatever is Brazilian. She had a person who just came over from Brazil, and that's the variant. And Brazil, I don't have to tell you, it's terrible in Brazil.
Well, they've got Donald Trump Jr. Leading Brazil, and it's so sad to see that all those people there are really in a world of hurt, and I don't see any solution to that. I mean, America dodged a huge bullet. The fact that they were able to vote in a president who actually cares and is trying to get this thing under control. Brazil, to me, it looks like those people are just left to their own accords, and it's a shame to see what's happened over there in Brazil. And yet, like I said, I think the NHL situation, guys, is very worrisome because the amount of players that have been subjected to it. Most of the other teams, there's been a couple players here and there, but that situation over there is very, very scary in Edmonton.
All right, as you could see, we're joined by the broadcasting legend.
The legend?
Yes, Georgetown's own. Georgetown's own.
Chelsea's own.
That's right.
Norm Rumack. Say hello to your friend Norm Justin. You haven't seen him without the haircut. Come on.
Without the haircut? I didn't know. Oh,
yeah. Come
on. It's just easier.
Norm, how are you?
Good. How are you?
You're back on I guess we don't see you much. You're occupied, eh? Late night stuff.
Yeah, you could say that. Overnight security is kind of occupied, so. But anyway, it's a paycheck every 2 weeks, so you got to restart your career in your 50s and 60s. Unfortunately, that's what, won't mention their names, certain companies do to a lot of people.
Again, here we go
Take a
again.
wild
Hold on.
guess, Norm. Let's do Trivial Pursuit. Which companies do
No,
you think
no,
I'm
hold
talking about?
hold on. I brought you on here, first of all, to say hi to Captain Canada, Drew Ebanks, Norm Justin.
Well, of course.
All right. And
Drew.
I wanted to talk about the long-awaited Syracuse. I don't know if you know this, Drew. Syracuse surprised a lot of people in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, they did. You must
See,
say.
look how happy he gets. Look how happy he gets, okay?
Yeah, well, it was a
My
nice
guy
story.
Quincy Goodyear. That's my guy Quincy Goodyear. That's our guy right there.
Oh,
He had a phenomenal season. For the
Yeah, Quebec.
In honor of
Yes.
Syracuse, I think you should take off the Chelsea shirt, put on a Syracuse jersey. I'll give you
No.
time.
Well,
Go
I
ahead.
wore my Syracuse shirt when they were in the tournament, and the tournament's over, Joe. I don't know if you realize that. The
No,
tournament's
really?
over.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right,
Tournament's
let's talk
over,
about
unfortunately.
Did they surprise you? And did they surprise you how good they played in the tournament?
Yeah, they struggled in mid-season. They went on they had a bad run, and then they picked it up. I think they won their last 5 games, including a victory over North Carolina. And they let's face it, the first 2 games they weren't even expected to win. I think especially Drew know better than I. Was it San Diego State? They were thought of as a team that had a chance to go on a sleeper run because of their season the year before. Isn't that right, Drew?
Yeah, they were.
All right, listen. Forget about Syracuse for a second. I want to get
Well,
Norm. I want to get Norm going on something. Norm,
Okay.
my prediction is, hands down, the Leafs are winning the Stanley Cup this year. What do you think?
Yeah, really? Especially after watching the goalkeeping tonight, Norm. I'm sure.
No, don't spoil it for Norm Justin. He's PVRing it.
Yeah, well, Norm, wait till you see the Leaf goalkeeping tonight, Norm. You'll be so impressed, you'll change the goalkeeper. Oh, wait a second.
Freddie will be back.
Yeah, okay. Not that you would ever award a Stanley Cup 8 months ahead of time, Norm. I know it's not in your demeanor. Yeah, you don't plan parades.
So, Norm, okay, quickly, answer the question. Yeah. He wants to know, are the Leafs going to win the Stanley Cup, yes or no, or are you taking the field?
I think they could get to the finals, but I'm not picking them to win it, no.
Okay.
If they get to the finals, they're going to win it. If they get to the finals, because they're the Toronto Maple Leafs and not the Buffalo Maple Leafs, all right?
Yeah. Well, don't forget there's some other teams in the mix named Islanders and Bruins and Lightning who might have a say in that, Joe.
Well, I'm telling. So you're saying they're getting to the final, but they're not going to win it.
No, I'm saying they're getting to the semifinals, and they're not going to win it.
Okay. And Norm, if the Raptors make the 10th spot, are they going to surprise everybody and go to the Eastern Finals?
No, they're going to go golfing with you, Norm, or hang out at your cottage or whatever. No, I mean, listen, they won their championship, so they can dine on that for a while, but. They've had a number of issues, but I'm sure they'll be back next year. It's not like they haven't got talent, but they ran into a lot of things. And sometimes with teams that have championship caliber, sometimes you got to change it up and move some of your players around. So, lots of championship clubs have done that. And Messiah Jury is a pretty bright guy. He might have to shuffle the deck a little bit, so to speak. We'll see what he can do in the offseason. I'm sure he's already thinking that.
If he stays.
Well, I mean, he could end up going. I know he hasn't signed yet, but I'd be hard to imagine.
Let me ask you about that. Let me ask Drew, did you hear anything more about Musai staying, leaving, going to Washington, going to New York, going to Bangladesh? Go.
I haven't heard much. I mean, I asked that question to some of the people in my chat groups. I've never seen him so quiet. This is very unlike him to be kind of very incognito here and not really outward as far as what's happening with the team. I mean, normally you'd think he'd come up and kind of let the fans know, hey, this isn't, it's a tough season, but we're still trying to get back to where we were. He hasn't been signed yet. What's happening? The team, they went all in trying to get Giannis, didn't get him, let Serge go. And right now the team's kind of in a free fall. So I haven't heard much. I'd love to hear from Masai himself. We need to hear where he's going. Is he going to stay here in Toronto? That's a big thing. Is he going to go maybe to the Knicks, maybe somewhere else? Who knows? Maybe to Washington, where the rumors are. We need to know what's going on with Masai Ujiri, because I know the fans would love to have him here. There just seems to be some kind of disconnect. Maybe people are saying that court case with the police officer has taken a toll, maybe mentally, maybe he's just not in it anymore. Who knows?
Yeah, I would think, he'd be, knowing the kind of issues that he's sensitive to, not on a personal level, but what he's talked about, what's going on in the States. I don't have to go through all the details. You guys I don't mean COVID. I mean everything else, the politics and the big rift between left and right, and, the obvious horrific stories in terms of, reforms they're going to have to make with policing. Once again, unfortunately and tragically, I would think Masai would be, more comfortable up here. The profession side of it is separate, but, he could work here for as long as he wanted to with the Raptors. I mean, he's got the championship. Once he got the ring, or as Joe would say, once he got the belt, once you got the title, they can never take that away from you. He could probably work the Raptors as long as he wants to. So, but I don't know him personally. I don't know, in that sense, what makes him tick, and who knows? There could be other things going on behind the scenes we don't know about. So
I think Masai has ambition and an ego, and both of those are justly deserved for him. And I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up with something bigger than running a basketball team.
Well, he'd probably run like the entire organization, meaning, like let's say the Knicks. Okay, they probably, without having any insights at all, in terms of if I'm barking up the same tree you are, not only running the Knicks, but as a senior executive with MSG, like with the entire operation, it'd be something pretty like overwhelming on that level. That I'm
even thinking, Norm, even something different, something not politically per se, but something on a world stage, right? Using.
Oh, you mean like I know he's involved in causes, that involved issues back in Africa. He's worked with a number of the soccer players from Africa, including some from my team, in terms of issues that are important. Well, in terms of issues that are important, in Nigeria and elsewhere. I know that they've actually visited him in Toronto. I mean, some of it was social, but I know he's certainly cognizant and concerned about issues. So, I haven't heard him talk about that lately, but with knowing his roots and the issues that he cares about, I could see if he had some kind of global role, maybe growing basketball in underserved countries. I think that would be, especially if it was like, in Africa and several countries. I mean, maybe something like that would appeal to him, but I'm just guessing that from knowing some of the things he's been outspoken and involved in before.
Well, he's already involved in the new basketball league in Africa. Barack Obama as well, one of his right-hand men are also involved in it. So he's already on that global stage. But that's a great point. I mean, it could be something bigger, but he's already establishing that league. They're, I believe, supposed to start playing pretty soon as well. I think it's next month. So that's going to be interesting to see the talent coming out of Africa right now.
All right, so I have
Drew, do you think he could be part of an ownership group? If somebody like some organization offered him or put a group together, involving a couple of people, like I'm not saying somebody like Obama, or maybe just a group of people like that, where he could be part of that and he could front it, and run the operation from that level. I mean, I don't know. I just think that he's probably got one eye open for something bigger. If he doesn't get it, maybe he'll stay. But if he can get something bigger or huge that fits with his ambition, I think that's what he would look for. I don't know that he wants to go run leave Toronto to go run the Washington Capitals, or not Capitals, the Wizards, right? But something in a bigger level.
Okay, I got a question.
Great points.
I'm gonna ask all of you guys. This comes from Bill the Portuguese. And he wants to know if first to last, Norm, has Nick Nurse lost the room for the Raptors?
Are you asking me or
All of us, but I'll ask Rumac first because it seems like a nickname, Bill the Portuguese.
Yeah. Well, I pride myself on my honesty, and I haven't been down in that room in 5 years. So for me to sit on my tail here in my living room and watch a few games and some highlights, and suddenly, I can imagine if someone on the Raptors was watching, it's like, this guy hasn't been down to a Raptor game in 8 or 10 years. And from his living room, he's telling us he knows whether the coach has lost. I would be ashamed to answer that question. So I'm going to pride myself and bank on my honesty that I can't answer that question. I'm not going to guess at something that's that level of controversy and say that. Be unfair to the players, unfair to the coach. So I'm going to tell you flat out, I don't know. And considering, he's been a title winner, I'm just going to say, as an observer of sport, it has happened where a manager who's won a title can lose a room a year or two later. But let's just say I have my doubts, okay? But I'm just saying that from a distance and being brutally honest, that I don't have any particular insights. I don't speak to any guys in the locker room. I don't speak to any management people. So flat out, my first guess is I don't know. And my second guess is I doubt it. At least I've been honest.
Okay, Norm Justin, do you want to take that?
Well, I have heard some things about some recent controversies, but they don't look like he's lost the whole room. And if he hasn't lost the whole room, look, there are nights when they look disinterested, right? And then there are other nights where, they play really well. And I can't answer it either, right? Except it would be hard for me to believe that, given how well respected he was, even up until the COVID situation happened, right? Has he done something recently that's lost it? I mean, I don't know. Maybe, is that why they're playing so badly? I think I've said why I think they're playing so badly. I think they're playing so badly because of COVID, because they're fatigued, because they don't have, enough of a big man. But look at guys like, look at a guy like Watanabe, right? 3 weeks ago, the guy couldn't hit the side of a barn. Now he's shooting. What's he shooting at now? The last 5 games, Drew, like 40% from 3 or more. Like he's shooting lights out now, right? Yeah. And he's playing, and they're playing. Some of them are playing great defense, right? Like Watanabe, and I get that they're playing for a spot next year. I understand that too. But Watanabe is playing great defense. Malachi is playing great now. Some guys are not. Stanley Johnson sort of disappeared. So I can't really say. But from a talent point of view, they've just lost too much in the last couple of years, right? They've lost too much.
Drew, anything you'd like to
add? The Nick Nurse situation, it's hard to say. It's been a rough season. I think he'll get the benefit of the doubt knowing that he is an NBA champion head coach. To say he's lost the room, it's one of those things where there's so much going against the team. The fact that they lost some of their buddies that are not with them, the fact that no one's really afraid of the Raptors anymore. I mean, that's a psychological thing, right? It's when you're champion, you come into, arenas or teams come in and they knew, obviously playing in Toronto, the fans would be an incredible 6-man for them. And so now that's all thrown out the window. The whole swirling about Kyle Lowry, are they going to deal him or not? It doesn't look to me that he's lost the room. It just looks, as Norm Justin would say, it's almost like the season has been lost, especially with the COVID. Before it hit, they were playing so well. They were starting to come along, and boom, just like that, 3-4 guys are out, and that's it. So I think at this point, they've got to try to do what they need to do. I'm not saying to lose games, but I'm saying this draft is going to be pretty nice.
All right, so hold on here. We got this question's for Norm Rumack. It comes from John Freeman N. He wants to know, you got 2 minutes to give a Chelsea wrap up. Go ahead. John Freeman N. Special shout outs.
Hey, would that be my friend John Freeman Nelson?
Ed. I wonder
It
who
says
that
Ed.
might be.
I don't know if it's John
The
Freeman
man
Nelson.
the man from Atalanta?
Yes.
Yeah, a 2-minute wrap. Well, they're in the semifinals of the FA Cup playing Manchester City on Saturday, 12:30. And shockingly, they're in the semifinals of the Champions League going up against Real Madrid on April 27th and May 5th.
You know who's going to win that game?
Really? Well, you're about the only one who does, because they weren't supposed to take down Atletico Madrid, who got one of the best coaches in the world, and they weren't supposed to beat Porto either, and yet they did.
I'm saying Chelsea's going to win. You think I'm going to go with Madrid? See, you don't know me at all. Come on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, it'll be fun to see what happens. A, they're going up against one of the best teams in the world, but B, their former player will be going up against them, not in the first leg, in the second leg, Eden Hazard. Who went to Real 2 years. He's had a lot of injury problems, but he'll make his return. Unfortunately, there won't be fans in the seats, but he'll make his return to Stamford Bridge on May 5th. First time he's been back since he signed with Real a couple of years ago. They sold him for about 150 million pounds, and unfortunately for Aiden, he's had a lot of injuries, and the word on the grapevine is that Real might try and sell him for even just 50 million this summer, because he's had very little playing time because of injuries. So Chelsea made themselves a hell of a deal in that sale. And so, but we'll see what happens. That's a tough opponent. And Chelsea's average age is about 21. So they're underdogs, but Thomas Tuchel, their manager, since he took over from Frank Lampard, has done an outstanding. They've lost one game since he took over. One game out of, I think it's 16 now. Pretty remarkable what he's done there with that young group. It's pretty exciting times to be a Chelsea.
Right, I know you guys have to go, but Norm, Norm Rumack and Norm Justin, I want to tell you, Drew Ebanks, of course, is Captain Canada of OnPointBasketball.com, but he is going to start out very soon On Point Soccer.
Yeah, I know.
Do you need a guy at Norm Rumack to teach everybody, speak about, turn them every Chelsea fan for On Point Soccer, youngsters, everything like that? He's starting On Point Soccer, Norm. Come on.
Yeah, I know.
It started already. What do you mean he's starting? I've already started it.
All right, started, but you didn't invite Norm to brainwash them about Chelsea. Come on.
Yeah.
Brainwashed.
Yeah. No, I don't. I'm sure, like everything else Drew undertakes, it's an incredible operation. And
thank you, Norm.
It's Chelsea has rapidly grown one of the biggest fan support bases in the world on social media. I think they're leading I think they're ahead of all the other English clubs, actually, in terms of total social media. I think they're at about 100 million followers. So they've grown exponentially. They actually, speaking of Africa, they got a huge following there because, of course, of the players they've had, led by Didier Drogba and John Obi Mikel and others. But yeah, they've got a massive following in Africa and elsewhere around the world, but especially in Africa, and they've grown their North American following significantly. So I'm pleased in that they have a great global outreach in terms of their charitable foundation, the Chelsea Foundation. And you guys are talking about COVID, during COVID over the last year, Roman Abramovich bought out every room in 2 hotels nearby Stamford Bridge, set them aside for the NHS staff. NHS, if you don't know what that means, it's the National Health Service. That's the nurses and doctors in England. So he bought every hotel room in two big hotels right beside their stadium. And he also, they also provided more than 100,000 meals for elderly and disadvantaged people and needy people in the London area, and also sponsored a big charity called Refuge. Sadly and tragically, domestic abuse went up exponentially everywhere in the world, and including in England, with the start of COVID and people's money and whatnot being cut back. So tragically, domestic abuse went up dramatically. So Refuge provides shelter for women and children. and Chelsea got behind that charity to help them out as well. So anyway, as a supporter, I'm pleased with a lot of the things that they're doing on the field, and very proud of what they're doing off the field as well.
All right, so that's Chelsea. And by the way, Justin, Storm and Norman can be seen on the Fired Up Network Tuesday, 6 p.m. with some guy who has worse hair than me, Billy the Greek or whatever, straight up with the Greek there. So he's at Tuesday, 6 p.m. We air it here on the Fired Up Network, also on the radio side. And this week, who do you have on, Norm? You had some good guests on this week.
Yeah, we do. You check it out. We try to get good guests every week, but Paul Bruno joined us. He covers baseball for MLB.com, does a hockey podcast on RotoWire, and also Michael Bonanno, a young Oakville, Ontario man who I knew as a kid. His dad, Augie, was one of my sponsors in the early days of the fan. Anyways, Michael is a baseball player agent, and he's got several guys in the majors, including Mr. Romano, the Blue Jays, is one of his clients. So, you'll hear him talk about the road he took, because not too many Canadians who are baseball player agents. And he played college baseball in Florida at Brevard. So he paid his dues. Nice to see a Canadian young man make it. And as a player agent, and he knows his baseball, obviously. He's also, by the way, a big Leafs fan, goes without saying.
And a couple of weeks ago, he had Alex Anthopoulos, and the Atlanta Braves have never been the same since he came on Norm's show. All right?
Yeah. No, Alex, I love Alex Anthopoulos. Great guy. He's very nice to me.
So kudos to both of you, Drew and Norman, on the stuff you're doing, and kudos to you, Joe, for putting all this Fired Up, great lineups together here.
Oh, hold on, no, Norm Rumack. When are you going to put Norm Jetson on your show with the Greek? Come on, or for that matter, Drew. Drew's got to talk about On Point Soccer on the Straight Goods with the Greek.
Well, Joe, I've only been on that show for about a month, so
why weren't you your first guest? This guy's Captain Canada. Come on, Norm.
I know he's Captain Canada, but I had Alex Anthopoulos. I had to take care of him first. And I don't own or run the show, right? So
okay, so hold on. Both you guys, Drew's not a hockey guy, but tomorrow, first of all, it's my mother's birthday, Terry Brevard's birthday. But on Saturday, it's Borja Salming's 70th birthday.
Good.
Hail to the king, right, Norm?
Yeah, hail to the king. He earned that name. And asking me this.
Do you want to tell anybody why you?
I'd be happy to tell this story. Borja was very muscular and
really muscular. Big. Okay.
Well, he was very big, and he was so big. He was so big.
I'm going to cut you off. Don't get us.
I'm just saying.
I did a great job. Come on.
I didn't say anything bad. I'm just saying he was so big. His teammates were in awe of him. So they called him the king. That's the story.
Norm Justin, what did you think? Any memories of Borja Salming, 70 years old? Can you believe it?
Borja was my favorite player to watch. He was, in the 70s. I was a sort of he played during my teenage years my adolescent years, right? I was not quite. Yeah, I guess I was a teenager.
Yeah, then. You were 72, 73.
Yeah, I was. Like I was. He played during my teenage years. He was. I would say, other than you may or may not agree with this, Norm, but I would say, other than Larry Robinson, Bobby. We were past Bobby Orr now, right? Yeah. Other than Larry Robinson, maybe Brad Park, he was as good as any defenseman for a long period of time. Then in the 1970s, well, he was as good as anybody.
I'll extrapolate on your story a little bit. So this sort of adds to your point. It was 2005. I was able to chat with Scotty Bowman. Jim Devellano, my friend from the Red Wings, invited me to see the All-Star game, baseball All-Star game in Detroit in 2005. Anyway, I was sitting with Jimmy and with Scotty, so we obviously talked a lot of hockey. So, as you know, having been a young Leaf fan, I said, Scotty, you take Boria from that era and looking at that Montreal Canadiens team that he coached to 5 Stanley Cups, that may have been the greatest team ever. In 1976, by the way, they only lost 8 games a whole year. That's how great they were. So I asked him, I said, where would Boria slot in with, Robinson, Savard? I'm leaving out, is it Lapointe? Who am I leaving out?
I think Lapointe was on that team.
Yeah. So now get this. So Scotty told me, and you consider we're talking about Larry Robinson and Serge Savard. So he said Boria would have been his third defenseman on arguably the greatest team to ever play hockey. That's how much he thought of Boria Salmon.
And by the way, after you guys, in about half an hour, we got your friend Norm, Toronto Star's own Mark Solinsky. He wanted me to give you a shout out. So
good man, Mark. I've known him forever, like way back when I was working with my buddy Roger Lajoie at the Toronto Marlboros. Mark was already working with Toronto Star. He's a good man, good person, and a good, very diverse, as you guys all know, and Joe knows for sure, in terms of his sports knowledge and his coverage, and good for him for lasting. That's a newspaper, radio, TV, they're all brutal businesses right now, but Mark's been a survivor, so good for him. It's a tough field, as I know, and everybody knows who's worked in it. But but Mark, more importantly than anything, he's a good man. He's just a good person, so good for him.
All right, so as we close this chapter out, Norm, tell everybody how they could get a hold of you.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Or Norm, or which me?
Norm Justin, yes.
How can they get a hold of me for what?
For your
if they just want to say hello, just look me up on Facebook, right?
All right.
If you need an arbitration meeting, see Mr. Justin. If you need an arbitration meeting and you need to win by a landslide of millions of dollars, Norm will win it for you, guaranteed.
Millions of dollars?
I'm switching. I should tell Drew, I saw 2 10-year-old kids playing basketball today. Okay? Drew, you're going to like this.
I got news for you. You can't switch to 10 years old, okay?
So I stopped them and I called them over and I said, guys, if you guys play basketball on a team, and they said yes. I said, if there's 5 seconds left in the game and your team is down by 1, right? And the ball's in your hands, do you make the basket? And one of the kids said, well, I don't know. It depends how many people cover me and whatever. And the other kid says, absolutely. I said, this is the guy who's going all the way. Make sure you dribble with both your left hand and your right hand. If you want to make $30 million, you got to shoot with your left hand and your right hand and keep being confident, right?
So, Norm, with all your negotiation skills, why didn't you offer to be his representative, his agent? You could sign him up with the Raptors, for God's sake.
No, I got too many. I got my irons in too many fire. But listen, if they want me as an arbitrator, go to your union rep, right? If you want to use me as an arbitrator, just go to your union rep or your company rep or whatever. I'm neutral, but I'm fair. Just say if you have a dispute between the union and your employer, tell your union that say, let's get Norm Jessen on the arbitration and then or as mediator. But other than that, if you want to say hello on Facebook, knock yourself out when I post something, right?
All right, Chelsea Boyd, tell everybody how they could get a hold of you.
Well, I won't tell you where I'm working security. That remains confidential because you never know. You never know who's out there. But anyway, I do, as Joe was alluding to earlier, once a week, a Facebook Live with Billy. He calls himself the Greek because he is Greek. And you can find it either on because it's Facebook Live, either on my Facebook page, Stormin Norm Rumack, Rumack. So it's Stormin, M-I-N. Stormin Norm Rumack, or just look the Greek, 2 words, and you'll find it there. And I also posted on my LinkedIn page, which is just under my, usual name, Norman Rumack, Rumack. So I posted there, and Joe's been a big help. As you mentioned earlier, he posts it on the Fired Up Network. Usually it runs on Thursday nights. He and Terry Rivard put it up there on Thursday. So we appreciate Joe and Terry doing that. So check it out. And we've had some good guests, and hopefully we can get Drew on with us at some point. We'll talk some hoops as well, for sure.
Wait, you said Drew, but not Norm Jessen? Come on.
Well, Well, maybe if I need to go to arbitration with my
You need to go
caller.
to arbitration with that Greek. Man, there's fighting all the time. You need to go to arbitration with that Greek. Come on.
Oh, you mean so? Like, does Norm mediate fighting in hockey? Like that
Yes.
kind of mediation?
Yes.
For the right price, Norm, I'll mediate anything.
Everybody has the price. Everybody has a price.
Yeah.
All right. And so Joe, where can we find you?
No, don't. You're watching me, anyways. Drew Ebanks. More importantly, where can we find Drew Ebanks? Go ahead, Drew. You got 24 seconds on the shot clock.
Oh, just find me on onpointbasketball.com. We have a brand new website redone. Got a lot of great content. We got some amazing stories coming up, and as well, Drew Ebanks on Twitter, On Point Basketball, Facebook, and on YouTube. So yeah, we're doing it all, and hopefully soon we'll have our soccer website up and our YouTube page there, and got some big news coming in the soccer world very soon. We'll be able to drop that news probably in about a week or two as well.
You're sending Norm to England for Chelsea games?
Yeah.
Could
Well,
be. You never know. We'll work on it.
Yeah.
Chelsea correspondent Norm. It's got a good ring to it.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah,
that would be fun
for sure.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks, Norm Rumack. Thanks, Norm Jessen.
Yeah.
And thanks,
Drew.
Thank you, guys. Nice chatting with you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me
Good seeing
on.
you, fellas. Drew,
Have a
Norm,
good rest of the
Joe.
show.
All right. I'll speak to you guys soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So that was Norm Rumack, Drew Ebanks, and Norm Jessen. And now I had earlier on today the chance to interview the general manager of the Toronto Arrows rugby team about the Arrows this season so far, and look forward to Saturday's game against Seattle, 10:30 in the morning. And Toronto's playing their home games in Atlanta. So here's that interview with Mark Winokur. Welcome back to Fired Up Live here on the Fired Up Network with Mark Winokur, the Vice President and GM of the Toronto Arrows. Haven't done this in a long time. I know you guys didn't start the year off right. You missed me because every time I predicted a win, came through with a win. All right, let's look back at the first couple games before looking ahead to this Saturday's game. Obvious question: what has gone wrong this year for you guys here? Of course, 1 and 2.
Well, Joe, I know this is a short show, so I won't be able to get to all the things that have gone wrong. The first thing that went wrong was COVID-19, which means that we can't play in Canada and in Toronto. The second thing that's gone wrong is, having to pack up the entire franchise and move it to Atlanta, Georgia, to try and play the season as the only Canadian team in the league. And listen, just all the knock-on effect from that. We couldn't have any preseason games where everybody else did. We were training in a bubble where everybody else was outside. And listen, there's a whole bunch of excuses, but we did sign up for it, and we're going to just have to work harder to overcome it.
Okay, so take us through as being the GM and VP, but let's look at the players. What is an adjustment of that being the only Canadian team traveling, playing their games in Atlanta, Toronto, Atlanta here? So take us through, give us the psyche of players and go out. You have to win. Doesn't matter where you're playing, you have to win. We're counting on you. The whole country's counting on you. It takes a toll.
Yeah, it is. It is mentally draining, and it also doesn't help to get up every morning and read sort of what looks like bad news from Canada. Certainly down here, the United States is doing a very aggressive job on vaccination, and whereas back home we just not seeing that kind of uptake. So that's a little discouraging. People are worried about their families and so on, but we're really trying to just keep them busy and focus on rugby, and that part's been pretty good. We seem to be getting a little bit better every week. This past week was a little bit of a bump in the road, but certainly played better in game 2 than game 1, and played better in game 3 than game 2. So we're going to try and not traveling this week will be massive, because that bouncing around the U.S. traveling during COVID is not fun to begin with, and doing that every weekend does take a toll, and hopefully without that, that's going to help.
So, have you gotten a vaccine, or have the players gotten a vaccine yet?
We're working with the Georgia Health Department to find out what the best protocols for us will be, and we'll take their advice. Obviously, we are kind of guests here at the moment, so we have to go with what they recommend, and we're working through that.
All right, so let's get to this week's game, Saturday, April 17th. Who makes the schedule? 10:30 in the morning?
Well, again, Joe, that's a whole COVID-related thing. We were scheduled to play at noon, and because the local university where we play has another event, and because they had to build in an extra 2 hours for COVID cleaning between events, that just bumped the afternoon event later and the morning event earlier. Without the COVID situation, then we would be able to sync that up. But that's only a 90-minute change in schedule, and not really should affect things too materially.
Well, actually, I disagree, because this is why I'm picking you guys, because you're playing Seattle. 3 hours, they're playing 7:30 in the morning. Come on, you guys should win. And in fact, here, I should get a drum roll or something, because I know you're waiting for I only got like 1 or 2 wrong throughout the years that you know me. All right? Now, the Toronto Arrows, are you ready for this one? The Toronto Arrows will not only win, they will win 28-17. There you go. 20. If I'm wrong,
Joe, I'll take it.
You'll take it. Of course, we're going to take any win, but take us through how Seattle doing this season.
Seattle are off to a little bit of a rough start as well. They lost their first couple of games. They won this past weekend in Utah, and it's we don't have a ton of data on them, but we know them well. We've played out there, and speaking of time changes, we've played out there twice at 8 o'clock at night, which is 11 o'clock our time. So yeah. I have a pretty modest degree of sympathy for this Saturday's game. And in any event, there's nothing that any of us can do about it. I did talk to their CEO last week, and he was very sympathetic, and we'll make it work. But Seattle are a team that we have had some pretty decent battles with in the past. There's not a lot of love lost there. They have a lot of British Columbia players on their team, not a lot, but several that we know. And it's a little bit of that old BC Ontario rivalry, and it should be a decent tilt.
First of all, I said 28-17. I think it's going to be more higher scoring. Let's go 38-27, you guys. All right? I think it's going to be higher scoring. But have you gotten used to the rugby league here as you're entering? You're no more of the rookies there. Have you gotten used to? And now, because you're not playing at home, because you're sleeping in some who knows the whole players and everything like that, this year is different than any other year you're probably ever going to face. So has everybody adjusted to that?
I think we're getting there. I think the first couple of weeks were a bit bumpy and rough, because we'd settle in, and then we'd have to travel, and then we'd settle back in, and then we'd have to travel. I think we're in a good place now, and starting to figure out a daily routine, and I think that'll only get better. We'll smooth out some of the bumps, and we're doing that. And yeah, listen, this is something that nobody wants to do again. Judging by the news from Canada, it looks like we might have to do it again next year, but we really hope not, and we're just trying to do the best we can to get through it, and not thinking too far down the road.
All right, and last time you were here, you talked about your merchandise, you talked about the jerseys, you talked about everything. You probably have people in Atlanta wanting the Toronto Arrows stuff, right? Because these jerseys are very, very hot and everything like that. I think we lost Mark for just a second. Hopefully he comes back in. Hopefully he comes back in here. So let's hope he comes back in. But again, it's the Toronto Arrows. Yes, he's coming back in. We lost you there, Mark, for a second.
Yeah, sorry about that.
But these jerseys, I think he went out and bought for a couple seconds, bought these jerseys, the hats and all that. Take us through what are people talking about the stuff, because Toronto Arrows stuff is really hot.
Yeah, the hoop jersey with the slight arrow bend in the hoop and the gold number on the back is a very, very popular item. People seem to be really excited about it, and the guys certainly like them. And again, reflecting that Toronto heritage of blue and white. You heard it here first. We'll be wearing the all blue over white shorts this weekend for this game. But yeah, the stuff is certainly moving well, and we just can't wait to get back home and see our people wearing it. Walking around the streets of Toronto. It's we feel a little bit disconnected right now, and any support we can get from back home will be great.
Okay, now final question here with GM and Vice President of Toronto Arrows, Mark Winokur. Atlanta's a new team also. How's the reception been for you guys, non-Atlantic team, playing in Atlanta?
I mean, the local rugby club, Rugby Atlanta, have been great to work with. They've been very helpful, and they realize we're all in it together. The public, I don't know how aware they are of our situation. I think a lot of Americans don't even realize that the U.S.-Canada border is closed. Yeah. So they're sort of saying, like, what are you guys doing here? But everybody's been friendly and helpful, and that should just get better as we get more familiar with everybody.
All right. Finally, tell everybody where they can check you guys out and give your website or anything else you want to promote.
Yep. TorontoArrows.com. Obviously, the games are on TSN this Saturday at 10:30. Next week, we are in New York City on Sunday the 25th at 2 p.m. And the following weekend are down in New Orleans. So all those games are on TSN. You can find us on the site. You can buy the stuff. You can send us messages. We're all available on our emails on the website, and love to hear something positive from folks.
What's going to be positive again? The Toronto Arrows victorious over Seattle, the Seawolves, 38-27. Take it to the bank. I'm never wrong, right, Mark?
Well, you might the score. I won't debate with you, but we'll see. I will admit you're usually right.
Usually right, just not for 649. All right, that's the GM and Vice President of the Toronto Arrows. Good luck to the Toronto Arrows this weekend against Seattle. Again, 10:30 a.m. on TSN. So thank you again to Mark for appearing, and hopefully next week we'll talk about a victory.
You bet, Joe. Look forward to it. Thanks, and be well.
That was Mark Winokur, the GM of the Toronto Arrows, that was taped earlier on today. So thank you to Mark for that. And we're going to be airing interview that I had, like I mentioned, with Norm and Drew, with Mark Solinsky of the Toronto Star now. He, of course, writes for the Toronto Star for years. Leafs, Raptors, or Leafs, Blue Jays, some Argos, some TFC. So I present you that interview with Mark Swolinski of the Toronto Star. Welcome back to Fired Up Live here on the Fired Up Network. It's my pleasure to welcome in my good friend from the Toronto Star, Mark Swolinski. He was on here a couple weeks ago. We have to promote the book. I know it's not coming out till July, but early build up. All right, we'll get to that in a couple seconds. Mark, it looks like you lost a little bit more here because the trade deadline was crazy for the Maple Leafs. So let's review the trade deadline. Check mark. Kyle Dubas checked all the boxes. Unfortunately, after the trade deadline, they had 2 games. They lost them both. Is this a bad sign?
I think no, but they've had those holes in their play now anyway, so they're just not quite getting dirty enough in front of the net and making mistakes in their own zone. And you saw that in overtime last night when Riley had the puck and Matthews, they got confused. And away they went. Gaudreau scored on the deke there. So just little mistakes they're making, and they're not. It's not like they're getting blown out either, Joey. They're losing by a goal or because of a couple of mistakes. And I think Rittich was unhappy with himself last night the way Campbell is, because he figured he should have stopped that one in overtime. But these things happened. They were 9 wins out of 10 games. So now they lose 2 in a row. They've got what? How many games left? 12, 14, 13? If they win half of them, they're easily going to finish in first place. So it's nothing to sweat about. But, what I guess they do have to look at is like, okay, Foligno comes, when Nash is ready, we got Riddich in there and then Hutton on D. I think the main thing is Foligno. I think Foligno, you won't have to worry about developing chemistry with him because he's just that kind of, he's a quality guy. He's got it all over his game. So just where you're going to play him, right? And where does everything else fit in? And then once you fit him in on a line, or if you're going to use him on the power play, it's going to take a couple of games for that to really work itself in. And I think, again, they still probably have enough time to get that done and then just get on a high note for the playoffs.
All right, so you talked about Foligno. So in hindsight, would you go after Foligno or Taylor Hall? Because look what they gave to Buffalo for Taylor Hall.
That's a really, it's a question that you're on a fence there, I guess, Joey, because Taylor Hall has so much promise. He's what, two years removed from his MVP season. Yeah. He admits he's had a bad year. The one thing I didn't like on a quote, or not so much I didn't like, but just like a little concern there, is he said after the trade, right now I'm not a confident player. But you saw him last night. He comes out, he's roaring, ready to go. Then you got Foligno. I think what the difference there with Foligno was, one, they saw what he did in the playoffs last year. He was pretty instrumental in the Leafs exit. Two, he's been in the league 14 years now. He's 33 years old, 14 years. Taylor's probably had a little bit, or maybe a lot of decline in his offense and in his own personal game. Whereas, Foligno's 33, he's a veteran, he's a former captain. That type of voice, that type of veteran presence worked well with him when they brought in, the likes of Brody and Bogosian and Thornton and Simmons. So now you've got a fifth addition that way. And it helps with the young core because, they're going to look at Foligno. And Foligno's going to come in. He's going to be in early every day. He's going to be on the ice. He's going to be working hard. He's going to be out on the ice. He's going to be checking. He's going to be fighting. He's going to be digging. He's like Hyman with a little bit more edge. He's got some skill. He'll score for you. So when you see that and you see a 33-year-old guy doing that, the rest of them are going to pick their act up and follow right along. So I think that was the big attraction in getting him over Hall.
All right, so let's put Dubas and Sheldon Keith hat on. Okay, if everybody, let's say everybody's healthy, who do you start? Do you start on the playoffs with Joe Thornton or Wayne Simmons or Foligno or Smith? Because now you got options galore.
Yeah, pick them out of the hat, and you probably couldn't go wrong, Joey. But first and foremost, keep Hyman up on the top line. Don't break that up with Matthew Marner. Just keep him up there. Give him minutes. Let him play 20-plus minutes with that line. Tavares is probably where I would look to put Foligno and Tavares together with Nylander. Nylander's got, I think today and tomorrow and Friday left on his protocol because it's only 7 days. And he should be back, I think, on the road trip. But get him back. Then you've got a lot of guys to choose from for the bottom two lines. But the point right now is get your top two lines set because they're going to get the most minutes. Those are the guys you've got to go to in the playoffs. You're going to shorten your bench anyways. Your fourth line is going to have to go out, do some energy stuff, get the puck in the offensive zone, throw some hits, maybe get into a scrap, whatever they're going to do. But your minutes are going to go to your top two lines. So get that top six straight. I personally, right now, I can't see how Foligno isn't in the top six. All that means is Galchenyuk. I think, if I'm looking at it right, Galchenyuk's probably the odd guy out. Do you want him out of there? I mean, he's worked well under the Veras line, but I think you got
Galchenyuk or Robertson because I know Keith wants to play Robertson all the time.
Yeah, again though, when it comes down to it, Joey, are you going to put a rookie in who's got two NHL games, or are you going to put Foligno in, right? I mean, when it comes to the playoffs, and I'm all for getting Robertson in there, but he's 19, 20? He's got, 15 years left in the game, or 10 anyways. Foligno you got to use now. That's what you've got him for, and you've got to get him the minutes, top 6 minutes. That's my guess. Now, hey, they could come out and start him slow, on the third line, right? Keep Galchenyuk up there. Let Foligno figure it out. Let him get his feet wet with the Leafs. See what, putting on that uniform is going to probably be pretty emotional for him for a couple of days. His dad's involved. His dad's a great guy. I was talking to him the other day. They might take that approach, but ultimately you got to maximize Foligno, and I think the way to do that's on the top 6.
Tell Mike Foligno Borshevsky says hi. So here's the big question here. Okay, who do you start in goal? Is Anderson coming back, or do you put your faith in Campbell or Rittich, or is Anderson coming back? And if he is coming back, do you give him the starting job after 3 weeks off in the playoffs?
No. There's 2 ways to go about Freddie. You either bring him back with 7, 8, 9 games, 10 max, let him play half of them and see what happens, or you don't play him until the playoffs and he's a backup and you ease him in. It's not a question of whether you have faith or you want to ride Campbell, Rittich. You have to. Right now you have to. That's your ultimate plan. Not your ultimate plan, but that's your plan A right now. Campbell, Rittich, Hutchison in the playoffs. Freddie's I hate to say it, a wild card, but right now he's not going to play unless he's healthy. We know, that he's been probably playing for 2.5 years with this groin issue. At least that's what we think it is. Very hard to heal those things. He's 30 years old, 2.5 years, the busiest goalie in the NHL in terms of facing shots. When he hurt it the last time, I think it was in a game against Montreal or wherever he hurt it, that was it, right? He hasn't played and reportedly hasn't even been on skates since March 19th, as you said. That's a lot of time. So if you're going to use him, get him back in at whatever point within 10 games left of the season, which is coming up at the end of next week, and let him work himself in. If not, if you've got to use his cap hit and keep it on LTIR so you can manage the cap, well, then that's it, right? Then he has to take the back seat in the playoffs because he won't be ready physically anyways. So it's a question of, if it was up to me, I would, and Freddie was healthy, absolutely get him in there with some regular season games left, and let's see what you got. Let's see how he is. But if you're managing cap and he's still sore, then boom, you go with like what you said, Campbell, Rittich, and then Hutch as the number 3.
All right, let's look at the trade deadline with the North Division or All-Canadian Division. Are you surprised Edmonton and Winnipeg, basically who are fighting for second and third, didn't do much, if at anything at all, especially Winnipeg, where you knew you needed defensemen. Defense. They picked up whatever. They needed some. This is the second year when they need somebody, and they didn't do it.
Yeah. Very a good assessment, Joey. But again, I think part of the problem there is part of the problem that a lot of people, a lot of GMs were facing in the NHL is June 28th is the expansion draft. If you start moving, do you want to rent the player and give up futures for them, then have to expose somebody you don't want to expose June 28th when Seattle picks, in the expansion draft, Seattle picks their roster out of that? Or do you want to play it safe, keep the player and protect him, and then, work it out for the long term? Now, they got Jordy Ben. They needed more. The Boyle gone. I think he's gone for the season. That was a bad blow. I think, though, with Hellebuyck in net, he's a terrific goalie. Obviously defending Vezina guy. The rest of that team, they can roll 4 lines with anybody. They have an excellent depth up front. If they clamp down and start playing more of a neutral zone pressure game and cutting, high flying teams like the Leafs off, I think they're going to be okay. Again, you listen to Cheval Dayoff in the day, in the day after the trade, he did mention the expansion draft and just, not being handcuffed by it, but just have to keep the big picture in mind. And I imagine there's just a price there that maybe he did go out, say like David Savard, the Tampa got, they gave up a lot for him. He just wasn't into giving that up. He's got to figure that his team is still, it's going to be viable as a contender for a while yet. If he didn't do it this time, he can do it in the summer, get going for next year. And who's to say that, the Jets aren't strong enough to win the North? I wouldn't bet against it. I think the 4 teams that are going to go into it, if the playoffs started right now, would be the Leafs, Edmonton, Jets, and Montreal. We'd all love to see it start this way because the Leafs would get Montreal and the Jets and Edmonton would go at each other. I think the Jets would probably right now look at Edmonton as more as a team that matches up better against them than the Leafs because they've handled the Leafs rather well this year. So going back to what they did at the deadline, which is, like I said, not much, that might come into play, if they face off against Edmonton. They've got the Leafs a lot more times, 3, 5, or 6 more times,
Yeah.
4 or 5 more times. So they can make a big difference there and maybe change their fortunes in who they face in the opening round. They could take over first place. Leafs got a pretty solid hold on it, but, the Leafs are up and down. They're hot and cold in some areas. It's just small things they got to tidy up. It's just those small things they've been doing all year. So, it's for Winnipeg fans. I'm sure they probably wanted something more than that, right? They wanted something more on D and then just really go in loaded up for the playoffs. But all the same, I like the Jets. I think they're strong. And we've talked about this many times, Joey. It's like pitching in baseball. You're only going to go as far as pitching in baseball, and you can go far in hockey with a mediocre goalie, but eventually you're not going to go to the Final Four without one. The Jets got probably the best goalie in the North right now. I don't think there's too much argument there. So they have that going in their favor. And when you're going into, these playoff games where there's more hitting, there's more pressure, there's not much room, there's probably not going to be a ton of offense. Then if you've got Hellebuyck back there and he's good for 2 goals or less a game, you got a great chance of winning. So I think that's overall in the big picture. They probably feel good because you can look at not getting a defense but still having Hellebuyck, and that's you still come out even, in my estimation.
Whatever happened, maybe you got word of Dustin Buckland. Winnipeg still has his rights. Why couldn't they move his rights or keep him whatever? And Dustin Buckland, does he want to play hockey? Because that's the guy who Maple Leafs should have gone after.
Oh, could you imagine having him? Yeah. The guy's got the strength of 3 men, right? He's a very strong guy.
Watch out yourself.
Yeah. My only strength is when the refrigerator door is open. Then I got the strength.
That's my strength. But have you ever heard of what happened to him? Or does he want to play hockey? Or
the word is he doesn't want to. And I think part of it was, from what we understand, personal reasons. That happens. I don't know if he's playing or even remotely playing to be in half shape. If there was something there, you would have heard about it. So I think this is probably for this year permanent. Now, anything can happen. We know, and we don't know. We don't know the entire story. And I'll admit I'm not. It's not something that I pursued in depth. But just from talking to other people and hearing certain things, it does seem, that he's not hung him up, but he's put it on hold at least for the time being. If he was back and healthy for the playoffs, well, now you've got something. He would make any team that much better. He's that good. In terms of being physical and just giving you that intimidation factor and that physical force that you want in the playoffs. You're right. If he would have been in a Leafs uniform, I would have been taking anyone else watching hockey would have been standing up and clapping for that. But we'll see. It's I don't know I can't even remember how old he is. Maybe he's just at a point in his career and his family life that doesn't make sense for him anymore. Maybe he's hurt. Maybe he's got who knows, right? It's personal, or at least part of it is. And then you've got to let somebody have the room to decide what direction their life wants to go in.
So I want to touch on 2 other points for the trade deadline, then we'll switch it here. But Detroit and Washington, Mantha. Steve Yzerman just signed this guy to a long-term deal, and then boom, he gets traded there. How does he fall out of favor, Yzerman? So, or is Yzerman knows what he's doing and just wanted to pick up a couple places?
Joey, excellent question. I would have to give the benefit of the doubt to Yzerman because he is who he is, and the reason Tampa is where they are is because of him. And Breezeball has done a good job too. No, not taking anything from him, but it's Yzerman, right? Yzerman's fingerprints are all over that, that blueprint there. Mantha is, he must have done, or somebody did a good job hiding that because nobody had that on their radar. That name did not come up. And like you say, he had a contract signed. What is a 5-year contract or whatever?
5 years. Yeah.
He was sewn up. And do you want to give a guy like that up? I mean, he scored his first goal in the game there the other night, last night.
Assist, yep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but maybe, they got Vrana back, and that's the guy I think Yzerman really wanted. Perhaps, he has other ideas and other uses for the cap hit that Mantha has. It's still, it bugs you. There's something in the back of your mind that's bugging you about that deal. Like, what is it? Mantha's not a guy who's a problem child. I mean, this is a guy, 31 out of 31 teams won in their top 6. Big, strong, skate, score. What else do you want, right? Like this is the guy you plug in and let's go. We've got somebody we can build a team with. So your guess right now is probably as good as mine. Again, that's a puzzler, and who knows? It's kind of like what they say. It could kind of like be with what. No, it's not going to be like with Foligno because Foligno is a free agent and Mantha isn't. So I was going to say that Foligno might sign back with Columbus in the offseason, but I mean with Mantha, he's going to fit in great with Washington, and he apparently, like you saw the reports, he was taking a nap or something, wasn't he? And then he got a call and he said, what? That was probably as much of a bombshell to him as it was to everybody else watching it.
Exactly. So I want to touch on let's go in the West, because the best 2 teams, Colorado and Vegas. Vegas was rumored to pick up Ryan Getzlaf, but they couldn't work out a deal. Now, are you surprised that both these teams, arguably best 2 teams in the West, didn't do anything?
No. Again, they're strong. I mean, we were talking about this before, watching those 2 go at it. It's big boy hockey. They look like they're going to battle it out in the West final anyway. So don't do anything. It doesn't matter. They're still going to go at each other. It's the division goes through those 2 teams. Like we say, they're probably going to go at it in the division finals. So do you stock up for that when you already have played each other hard and you know what you're getting, and you've already got top shelf teams? Both teams are, there isn't a whole lot of weakness there. And on the one hand, it's like Brian Burke always said, and he said when he left for Pittsburgh, when you've got a team that's in first place, you do everything you can and get everything you can to help it. I think in this case, I'm not arguing against Brian. His takes on anything are always worth listening to and to be respected. But there's different things now, right? Like, what we saw here, renting, this trade deadline was all about renting cap space and, moving draft picks around and getting players instead of, like the Leafs, for instance, didn't lose anybody off the roster. You managed to get what they got and a cap, but that, is you're really being creative with the cap. And that's what this deadline was all about. I can't remember the tally, the player tally from this year's deadline. I don't even think there was 10 or 11 or 15 players, no more than that, moved, but there was like 19, 20 picks and 7 or 8 prospects. So the emphasis was on cap management. And again, you're looking at those teams in the big picture, like Winnipeg, probably observing the expansion draft June 28th and thinking to themselves, we know what our division, what the layout is. We're pretty sure we're going to go to the division final. We know probably who we're going to play. Do we need to part with anything to accomplish and reach that far? And do we still feel if we, either one of those teams get it through the division and go to the Final Four, they've got to think that they have a hell of a good chance to win it all. They're very strong. Other teams in the East are also very strong, but I think both Vegas and Colorado didn't have to make changes, probably did the right thing. They have rosters that are elite, and just go from there and let play it out. They've done very well all year. Let's see where it goes.
All right, so the next question is going to come. So we're finished after the trade deadline is done now. So give me your final four, and then Stanley Cup final. You knew I was going to ask this. Come on.
Well, I'm definitely going to put the Leafs in the Final Four. I think it isn't anywhere near a stretch to come out and say that they should win their division. It's not going to be easy, but I would put money on it. Right now, I'd go and lay a decent bet down on it. Vegas, Colorado. I'd say Colorado. Tampa, and then take your pick. Islanders, Washington. I would now want. I can't overlook Boston either. Pittsburgh is, they know how to win. Get Malkin back healthy. Who knows? But I would have to pick between the Islanders and Washington. Say I'm going to go with Washington. So get those. That would be a heck of a Final Four. I don't know who the Leafs would get. Maybe they'd get Washington, and then Tampa would get Colorado. But boy, oh boy, those would be two fantastic series. You'd get your sandwich and your glass of milk and sit in front of the TV all day and all night. Just watch that. The playoffs are fantastic, but when you get into that Final Four with that level of team, yeah, you're gonna love that.
So you talked about the expansion draft, and now let's look at the draft, because now just this week OHL and CHL said they're not going to play and all that. What effect do you think? Because most of the players come from the OHL or Western Hockey League. Yes, they come from Europe and all that. Most of them come from OHL. What effect does that have on the draft?
Unknown. Obviously, it's not good. Obviously, they haven't seen enough of these players. I think they're still playing. Are they still playing the Quebec League? Because everything else is shut down, and obviously the Memorial Cup's shut down. They're even still going to try and get the Ontario League going just to give these kids maybe 10 games to play. Some of these kids have gone overseas, right? It is going to obviously be very difficult to grade the players. I think they still have a fairly accurate idea of first round. After that, though, I mean, you got to feel for these kids. I would think you are going to see a lot more U.S. college players drafted in the high rounds than would be normal because they're playing. It's a tough one, Joey. If you're a kid who isn't a first rounder but still expects to be drafted, say between the third and the fifth or sixth or seventh round, what are you doing? Where's your confidence level at now? You're compromised, and that is extremely tough, right? Like, you're talking about the difference between getting drafted and maybe you have to go play university hockey somewhere and start not all over again, but hope that, if you didn't get drafted, you might go to the U.S. college or whatever and get noticed there again. Because it's going to be easy. These fringe players, like the good players are going to get noticed, and even the fringe players are down on somebody's radar. But having not playing for a year, when what I mean by fringe players is lower round players, you got to figure that it's going to be easier for them to get lost. Nobody sees them, and they haven't developed. And down at the bottom end, you're taking a flyer on some people, and some of them you're just signing to fill out your AHL roster, anyways. But even that is all different, right? And speaking of the AHL, it just came out that Marley's got a positive COVID test, and they're going to be shut down until next Wednesday. So there you go, right?
Do you know who it is?
Do not know. Just heard just before it came on the show at 3:00 there that they're shut down. There's one positive test somewhere. Could be somebody on staff. Could be a player. I don't know, but I do know that at least I think I got it right that they're shut down until next Wednesday.
Wow, that's a big blow for American Hockey League. Of course, we don't see them at Coca-Cola Coliseum, but That's really bad luck. And by the way, just some news that I broke earlier this week. It looked like on Monday or Tuesday, the Canadian Football League is going to postpone the start of their season. From what I hear, they're going to have probably 6 to 8 games on Labor Day. So they're going to postpone June, July, August, and hopefully back by Labor Day. Again, it's still crazy here. We're still getting 4,000 here in Ontario, right? So
Yeah.
it's really bad. But let's shift our attention because Mark, for the Toronto Star, he writes hockey, he writes basketball, wrestling, curling, you name it. All right, and writes books. We'll get to the book in a second. But the Blue Jays, we're 2 weeks into the season, basically, 10 days. Okay, what impressed you, and what have you been disappointed regarding the Jays so far?
Obviously impressed with Grychuk and Vladdy. And, Bo would struggle a little bit at start, but Bo's going to come around. Biggio's, again getting it together. Vladdy has been their best hitter. It's great. It seems that he is a better athlete, baseball athlete, than he was at this time last year. I think you can stop being concerned or worried about him on field playing first base. He's hitting the ball well. I think yesterday or the day before, he reached down and got a ball outside and drove it in the gap for a double. So it looks like he is more maneuverable, more athletic. That's great. That's what's been impressed me the most. And like I said, Grychuk is playing for his job in center field because when Springer comes back, he'll probably not be there. Whether he go, and Teoscar's out now anyways on COVID protocols. So you got to get Grychuk in there somewhere. And I don't know what they do to keep him or keep his bat around, DH him or whatever. I don't know if Tellez is that, whatever, right? Depending on pitching. But Grychuk you got to keep because his bat's hot right now, and you keep that rolling as long as you can. That's been impressive. Concerns obviously are, you lost people out of your rotation. That's the key thing. I think they've done well enough, and Ryu had a great game last night. And last I looked, I don't know what the score is right now. I think the Yankees were up 4-3 just before we came on air with me, anyways, at 3. But Julian Merriweather's on the oblique, so he's on the 10-day DL, and I don't think it's serious, but obliques, like, that's what's wrong with Springer, right? Like, apparently his obliques healed, but now he's got the leg problem or something. But oblique takes a week to 2 weeks to heal, so that's not good news for the Blue Jays because Merriweather is, you can take your pick between Romano and him in the closer role, but right now Merriweather looked damn good for that closer role, and there was even talk about him stretching him out and letting him be a starter. But I would, with a 100-mile-an-hour pitcher, I'd tend to, put him, get him in the late innings of the game. So that's a little bit of a concern, with health and arms. But, I think they've played the Yankees well. They're going to move on here and see how it goes. And again, 2 weeks, like you said, Joey, it's not there's no trend setting yet other than the health thing right now. Playing in Florida is, yeah.
Are they going to play in Toronto this season? What do you think?
Right now, I say no. Until the vaccine, the rollouts are greater, Joey, until there's more people vaccinated, I think the health problem in Toronto is going to keep, it's going to extend into the summer. I would like to think by August, we all would, middle of July somewhere, but look where it is now. We're what, halfway through April, and it's nowhere. It's not, it's getting worse. This might be one of the worst. It's definitely the worst. Like Toronto right now, I think it probably has the most on average cases per day than anywhere in Canada. I know BC's bad too, but that is going to take a while to quiet down. It can quiet down based, I guess vaccines are one way to do it, and the other way to do it is what they're doing now is to shut everything down. But you can't do that either, right? Like, I mean, it's such a such a tire fire, I guess is what you'd call it. It's just it's smoking now. And you can pour all the water on it you want, but it's still going to smoke for a while until something breaks, and then it's either the vaccine or the herd immunity gets going. These viruses don't like the warm weather, so hopefully that helps in the summer. And apparently, according to the Farmer's Almanac, we're going to have a very, very hot summer. So let's hope all of that helps and it changes the scenery. But right now, Joey, I don't see it. I just see them going into Buffalo when the weather gets warmer and staying there. And I think part of the reason they put a lot of money in Florida is just looking ahead for this type of scenario where, Florida stadium needed it, and they put a ton of money into the development field, a couple of miles on the other side of the home field there. But and now it looks prudent, right? It looks like money well spent, because you may have to stay in Florida and use that as your home park for now. And for the next month, 2 months, you may, depending what's going on with Buffalo is ready for it. As we saw last year, did a fantastic job with it. So do you carry that on? But the question is, you come to Buffalo and you get in the playoffs, and it's in October. Yeah. So what do you do, right? And it's unfair, but that's part and parcel to the times we're in. I would love, if even if they could come to Toronto for the postseason, which is in October, perhaps something is solved out by then, and perhaps we have a nice decline in the number of cases, and then the government and health experts can see a way to open this up and put it in like a semi-bubble situation. And by that, I mean keeping the team contained in one area and let teams come in and out like they do with hockey. And I don't think the risk would be high. And by then, let's hope, the rollout of the vaccines is a lot greater than what it is now. So right now I say no. I think that can change. We'll put that asterisk on it. But the pandemic it is what it is. We know what it is right now. It's not good. It's the highest average number of cases per day. There's worry about hospital beds, and they're shipping people out to Peterborough and out to Kingston from Toronto in fear of, not having enough beds. We know the stories, we see them in the paper. So that is in the big picture and in the small picture here, it's a worrisome situation. Probably not fit to have baseball teams coming in and out here from across the border.
All right. So now I promise we're going to hype up the book. So any news about the book, it's coming around July 3rd. Hint, hint. So we're about 2-3 months away. But did you read it first of all? Did you read the rough copy or what? And I never got my rough copy yet. Come on. I want to beat everybody there.
Oh, I'm actually still finishing up. They sent the edit back earlier last week, and it's going to take me a couple of weeks to go through, what their proposals are and changes. The good thing about it is I told them I'm not going to change it. This was something that was special to me, once in a lifetime type thing. I've written books, but this is a piece of fiction completely made up. It's a story I made up. So I told them to keep it as is because I thought it was fantastic. And, anybody who's written a book is always going to say, yeah, I think it's fantastic because I wrote it. That's not the case here. I just feel that it works fine as it is. So they left it pretty much intact. We had some, obviously, when you're editing it and they took 2 weeks to do it, 2 or 3 weeks actually. So, there's suggestions, right? And it takes time to go through it. And as you're a writer too, and you do all kinds of stuff. You can't just put your first draft and expect it to stand up and be sparkly. Like, even the best authors in the world are edited, right? So I'm in that process, but it's a good process. Everything's still intact. The characters are staying the same. Dialogue's pretty much the same. There's I wrote 3 poems. The story's about an older woman called Norma, and she's in this small town called Simcoe, and she gets fired from her job and gets turned into a street person and gets wrapped up in some kind of very big trouble between the police and a gang, and she's in the middle of it because she has something in her possession that both sides want. And she gets brutalized for it. But there's an exploration, like she's also very smart, very kind. She writes poetry. So I wrote 3 poems in the book written by her, but they're written by me. But, so there's that. And that's something very different for me. So the editors were looking at that, and, poetry is a whole different thing. I think I can do it very well. But, again, that's me saying it. It's not someone else. So there's a lot going on in that book. And in the end, her kindness and her wisdom and her strength, and she gets the help of a bunch of kids, saves herself and saves the town from all this crime, and kind of turns it all around on the bad guys just through her wit and her wisdom and her kindness and all kinds of friends. It is very weird. A lot of stuff going on in the book. And, I could, if you got 10 more hours, I can explain it to you type thing. But
what's the name of the book?
What's that?
What's the name of it?
Norma. It's just Norma, and in the book, you don't even learn her last name until the last chapter. So, it's a book, about kindness and hope, and I'll give it away. That's her name, Hope, but you don't learn about it until somebody who went looking for her at the end of the book looks on her mailbox and says the initial N as a Norma Hope, and it's just really cool the way it finishes out. At least to me, it is. So. It's a book about hope, and the character really embodies that kindness and some stuff we could all use in our life right now.
All right. First of all, how come I wasn't contacted about the forward? I got to write the forward, no?
Well, they want me to, or else I would have got you.
All right. So and that
I mentioned you in the mentions for sure.
All right, but top, not beside Norm Rumack, because Norm. Okay, so
how's my boy Norm doing?
Sorry.
How's Normie doing?
Ask him. Ask him about Syracuse now. He was on tonight, so I'll give him a special shout out tonight. So
you do that for me.
Tell him,
Norm's good people. Norm's always been good people, and he always will be. He's a good lad.
You just want a Hammerhead shirt for Norma, okay? So that's
I do.
When is the book coming out?
We are looking at right around between July and August, early July or early August. It depends on what they get when I send my acceptance of the manuscript back. Then they've got to look at it again, and then we'll set that. And then there's a whole bunch of other things like marketing. I have to get into that, and I have to write a bunch of things about that. So you have to pick like who your audience is, how the book will touch the audience. So you got to have like 7 catchwords: kindness, corruption, old folks, all that kind of stuff. So that'll give these words, these buzzwords, I guess what you call them, will help capture your audience, because it'll literally pinpoint them through these pinpoint words. You got to do that, develop a cover, artwork. That's all takes time. Then, there's like a team of 15, 16, maybe more people. I know it's 15 minimum on that book who have to go through a bunch of other things. So you get the idea. It takes time. So we're looking July 3rd to August 3rd for release date.
All right. So I just got an email from a guy named Billy Jorgansakis, and this is actually very good. Borja Salming, my idol growing up, Borja Salming, his birthday is on Saturday, and he wants to know if Mark Swerlinski has any of Borja Salming's underwear. So that comes from Billy Jorgansakis. So go ahead. Any comments about? Look at the smile on his face. Borja Salming has his birthday.
I can't. No, I don't.
I didn't ask it. It was Billy Jorgansakis. All right, it's not me.
I'm not going there.
All right.
This is a what is it? P21 or parental?
It doesn't matter listen. Borja Salming, happy birthday, Borja Salming, April 7th. Also, Mark Swerlinski wants you to give him a pair of his boxers, underwears, or whatever, because he's doing a killing in those. Okay, so that's it. Now that's what's the positive news. On the sad news here, since I was a member of Toronto Star also, and your buddy Kevin McGrath's dad passing away last week. Let's give him a shout out. Go ahead, Mark.
Yes, Kevin's a fantastic hockey writer, as you know, and follow him on Twitter. He's all over Facebook, Instagram. In fact, he wrote a very, very touching and lovely tribute to his father on his Facebook page. You might want to look at that. Paddy, they're Irish descent. good salt of the earth people. We all love Kevin. We all wish him the best. Tough time to get through. I've been through it. I'm 60 years old, so obviously my parents are gone. It's not an easy thing to get through, and you need your friends, you need support. It helps. So that's a very nice thing for you to do here, Joey, is to do what we can do best, is offer our support. And it's Kevin's always in our heart and our prayers. And his father, is looking down. Like I sent him a text the other day, said, at least your dad's looking down from heaven and seeing what a great son he has. So, you just wish him the best, and time will help, and time's the great healer and all this. But I can tell you one thing from my experience: it's very tough to get over, and you're never the same, because who are you closer with, really? Your wife, your kids, and everything like that. But your parents are just as close and just as a big part of your life too. So you never forget it, and we wish Kevin the best. He's one of the good ones.
Very good said. He's one of the good ones. That's Kevin Grant, Toronto Star, with Mark Solinsky, also Toronto Star. Mark, final question is tell everybody how to get a hold of you, and look out for that book, Norma. I'm going to tell Norm Rumack to get, it's a book for him. I have hope. He doesn't have hope for me. Never mind. But Norma, check it out, July or August. But go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I'm, as you see on the guest tagline here, I'm at Mark Zwoll on Twitter, and I'm on my email at mzwolinski@thestar.ca. Happy to hear from anybody, and really happy that you're listening in right now, and listening to us chat up some sports and other things.
And closer to the time, Mark, you'll be on here again, because I got to promote that book and give hope to everybody there. And it's a very good cause. And honestly, you're one of the best writers. And for you to write, that type of book, for it seems like it's for everybody also. So that's not many people talking. You could read it if you're 10 years old or 100 years old, right?
Yes, indeed. Indeed. It's a very easy book to read. So it's a page turner, and you could probably finish it in 3 to 4 days if you're a good reader, and no longer than a week if you're a casual reader. So it was written for that purpose. It's not some in-depth, big, episodic thing. It's just a nice story. It's crazy. It has a lot of twists and turns, but it's easy to follow. And I think at the end, it turns out really well. So there's a really, really good ending, and it gives you a good feeling. So if you like that type of thing, nice, easy read with a nice ending, there you go.
Yeah, and again, Mark Solinsky, thank you. He'll be back on before the book comes out, and maybe we'll get him for playoffs or whatever. But one of the best, Mark Solinsky of the Toronto Star, and I'll tell Borja Salming happy birthday and to get you some underwear. Okay.
My birthday's coming up. Yep.
His birthday's on Saturday, so happy birthday, Borja, and again, thanks a lot, Mark.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yes, indeed, happy birthday, Borja, and all the best to you, your family, and all the listeners and watchers here. Stay safe, and thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
All the best now.
That's Mark Solinsky, Toronto Star. So we come to an end of Fired Up live here. So thanks to Drew Ebanks, Norm Justin, Norm Rumack, Mark Winokur, and Mark Solinsky here. And we just have something special here. In about 5 to 10 minutes, we're going to do another edition of Maple Leaf Forever. So check it out here in about 5 to 10 minutes. Breaking now is Mauro Ronaldo, formerly the WWE and, of course, Bellator and all that, is going to be the announcer for Rebellion next Saturday when Rich Swann defends the Impact Wrestling title against Kenny Omega, who's defending the AEW title. Also, another release in the WWE, Mojo Rawley was released as well. So thank you to everybody. Stay tuned for more great programming in 5 to 10 minutes. Maple Leafs Forever. Take care. Have a great night. And stay tuned in 5-10 minutes for a recap of the Maple Leafs losing to the Winnipeg Jets.